Hey there, you're tuning in to LowKey by Oaky, our easygoing sessions for hotel professionals where we chat about industry trends, issues, and solutions.
Hello, everyone, all the listeners. Here is another amazing episode of LowKey by Oaky, and we're joined by such an amazing guest today. A fellow founder that I had the pleasure of meeting together with his co-founder, Richard, some 9 years ago at the Good Hotel in London. We met for the first time.
No, we met in Amsterdam.
Did we meet in Amsterdam?
Yeah, when that boat was still here and then they schlepped it
Oh, yeah,
to
sorry.
London. Yeah.
Exactly. Sorry, in Amsterdam, indeed. And we've kept in touch ever since and kind of grown our babies and hotel technology companies side by side and become really great partners. And I contacted our guest, which of course is Matt, CEO of Mews, because I think you are so incredible because you are so driven and ambitious, but also very open and transparent. And I wanted to have a topic. To a fault. Yeah, you just said you had no filter. But I wanted to talk about, because when you're on LinkedIn or on social media, you see all the glory and all the good stuff that is happening. But I think as a founder, the journey is sometimes the destination. And we have a lot of cool stories on stuff that has happened in the back end. And from both of our sides, many learnings that we take from big things that have been huge fails, but also huge successes. So, yeah, super happy that you're here. Welcome, my friend, Matt from Mews.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, Matt. So maybe to start off with something around entrepreneurship. So Mark Andreessen, this brilliant investor, he says that entrepreneurship is a mix of two emotions. Either you're in terror or you're in euphoria.
Yeah.
And as a
I
founder,
recognize that emotion.
how have you learned to deal with a roller coaster that is entrepreneurship over the years?
Like, it's funny because I've grown up in hotels and in the traditional hotel structure, and there you think you work really hard, and I don't want to dismiss that work that goes on there, but when you have your own business and you have people on the payroll, and every deal makes a difference if you win it or you lose it, it is genuinely terrifying in the beginning when you can't pay payroll, when you don't have money in the bank account and you're figuring that out. And then you, on that same day, you win a massive deal.
Yeah.
And it's this by emotions that you have simultaneously about the business and trying to build this thing. And it is incredibly terrifying, but also very gratifying. Like to get to the end of the week or to get to these key moments when you look back, and you very rarely do that because you just keep your head down and you keep working. But sometimes you stop, or someone says like, Matt, look at what we've done. And then you stop and you look at it and you're like, it's actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it's those moments when you stop to think what's happening, that you actually have an impact, that it isn't just about making money. It's having an impact on the industry. And when you stop and look at the change you're making, those are the moments that make it worth.
Yeah. I always look at it like when you see your team members growing, and they are and like you go through something and you have feedback and say do it like this or whatever, and you see people develop, and then all of a sudden things are happening around you that you have no input in, and it's just done perfectly in a better way than you could have ever imagined.
Yeah,
that to me is like the best feeling ever.
Like some of these people have come in, like our last CTO who left after 10 years. He was a student when he joined us, and he scaled that team to 200 developers.
Yeah, wow.
And just to see him, just observe him growing, it's incredibly powerful. And that I can have some piece of that success, it's really exciting. Yeah, I don't know maybe I held him back. That's my thinking, but yeah, it's fun.
Hey, so we started our companies like 9-10 years ago. What are, first of all, for all the listeners, how would you define, like, if you broke it down into some sub stages, what stages have you gone through since then?
Like, it's funny when you now, after 10 years, you go to these startup classes and then they have a chart that shows all these stages. And like, yeah, we pretty much gone through those stages. Like the first one is trying to build a minimum viable product, that a few customers will accept as a beta and that they'll test. And then once you start to get 10 customers that are actually using it and are happy, you need to reach that new moment when you start to actually sell it. Have an actual sales team instead of me and Richard running around with the laptop into hotel lobbies trying to get people to buy it. So you get that stage of, right, we now need a actual sales team and a website that works. And then you reach the next point when it's like that like you reach a new segment, for example, in that business, and then you really scale, and then you get investments. And when you get investment, suddenly it professionalizes the business significantly. So most of the stages that you see on these slides, they're real, even though in the moment you don't think about that. Like you just run as fast as you can. And then in hindsight, 10 years later, you look at a slide like, yeah, that's actually pretty much the journey that we've gone through.
And if you think back at yourself at the MVP stage, Matt with a lot less gray hair.
How dare you?
What would you say? What would you say to young Matt? Like, what would be your recommendations about like really important learnings from that specific stage?
Like in the early days, it was mostly money issues, right? We couldn't get an investment because we're a B2B boring business, and no one was interested in what we were doing. We were solving a really tough challenge, and it was really hard.
Was it still PMS in those very early days?
It was, yeah, yeah. And people were like, drop that and just do the really easy light thing that can scale fast, build the TikTok of hotels or whatever. And we're like, no, this is a problem that needs to get solved, and we're here to do that. So in the beginning, it's hard because investors are like, well, this doesn't make any sense to us, and we're like, no, it makes complete sense. So we believed in ourselves, but you're dealing with cash flow issues mostly, and that's the worst piece because you need to pay salaries, and that's probably the hardest thing. And in that moment, I've had many sleepless nights, and I think in hindsight, I've learned there's always a solution for everything. Yeah. So I don't necessarily have sleepless nights anymore about cash flow or other things. I still wake up and I lie there for an hour thinking about something that's really bothering me, but much less because I know I'll figure it out. I'm smart enough. Whatever problem comes me, my brain works in a way where normally I'll find a solution, even though in the moment I don't know it.
What's a creative solution you had to do when you had no more cash?
I don't know if I should share some of these things.
Share something that's okay to share.
Like we were always like, say, in the beginning, we didn't sometimes have cash for weeks. So we would be like, well, something went wrong with the bank, and like, you didn't get the money. So unfortunately, in the early days, you do have to sometimes be creative about where you get it from. And your early team has to buy into the long-term mission, I think. And when you grow up, like people, when you're a 10-year-old company, you can't not pay people salaries. Like they expect it on a certain day. And when, last month we were a day late and suddenly panic erupted. And, in the beginning we got away with murder almost, which you just don't at a later stage. I think we had to get really creative around cash flow management and sometimes not paying suppliers on time, holding back.
You can get customers to prepay, maybe?
Oh, we've had that moment where we're like, well, why don't we get everyone to prepay? Like if we can get 60% of our customers to prepay for the year, that will solve our cash flow issues. And we completely went one way. And then, 2 years later, we're like, we've basically discounted our product because we wanted to get the prepayments. So our average price has dropped, which also isn't a great thing because investors are like, that's not great. Yeah. So we've definitely had that stage.
Yeah. I can really recognize myself into that. And you end up going from one stage to the next, and you kind of, you basically turn between those two for as long as you need. Cool. Hey, how are you different as a CEO today, you think, compared to how you were 10 years ago?
Not much. I think at the core, I'm still who I am. And it's funny, we hired a few years ago a guy, Bastian, who runs our operations team now on the sales side. And he worked with me at Hilton. And he's like, already back when you were a sales director at Hilton, you were never going to tell me what to do. You just like, figure it out. This is your goal. Go do it. And I don't really give detailed direction to people. I just trust that people are smart enough to figure it out. And then he came into Mews and he's like, I remember when you said that at Hilton to me, and that kind of stuck with me. And you really haven't changed that much. Like still today, sometimes I micromanage, but often I can pull myself out of it and say, okay, this is what we have to do. You're smarter than I am. So you go figure it out. And I trust that you'll do the right thing. And if we fail, we'll figure it out. We'll fix it somehow. So in that sense, I haven't dramatically changed. But I think my biggest thing is I know more than anyone about this business because I've been in it from day one. Yeah. And I know everything about every department. So I have way more context than I ever had before. And I think that's the really valuable thing for me today.
Talking about micromanaging, I feel like I feel, at least for myself, I need to micromanage when I feel like I cannot hold someone else accountable for doing something. So like accountability for us is a really, really big thing. And like, I feel like something many organizations struggle with. If there's this really famous triangle of something, I can't think of it, but like you have like trust, and then you need to be able to have conflict that leads to accountability and eventually results. Like what are great learnings from you and from Mews on how to drive accountability from each other?
I wish I had the answer. Genuinely, this is the word that I use so much. I'm like, who's the accountable person?
Yeah.
And because our org is now, we're 800 people and we're hybrid and cross-functional, and it gets really confusing about who should carry the responsibility, because it's a shared responsibility, but you want to point out that one person that I can look at. You're like, you take this home. And it's a struggle still today at the scale that we are. And most companies struggle with it. That's probably one of the biggest challenges that any modern company struggles with. But we engage in it. Like, we lean into that conversation. So we do an exercise with our leadership team where we call it the elephant in the room. And everyone has to write their elephant, the thing that we should be talking about, but we're not. Like, we're brushing over things. And like, no, stick it on the board. And then we vote. And then we talk about that thing. And cross-functionality and accountability is the one that keeps coming up. Yeah. Which is great, because at least we're leaning into the conversation and we're getting better at it, but we're definitely not great at it.
We are now starting from the leadership team down that everyone has to have a personal, completely objectively measurable KPI, 1 or 2, that they are completely responsible for over time.
Nice.
And then once you've defined that per leadership member, my view is that will trickle down to the rest of the organization, but we have to be holding each other accountable on the top level.
Nice.
How else can we assume that the rest of the organization will? And once you have those defined, I think we can then start to say goals. So say marketing is responsible for SQLs. Okay, that's very clear. That's what that head of marketing should do. And then you set that goals that person is. So that's different from OKRs, but then personal.
Yeah, like it's actually last night we had a long discussion with one of our leadership teams about OKRs and how do they compare to KPIs and our long-term goals. So we have a 2-year strategy, and then we have KPIs that are consistent throughout that 2 years that we will always look at. And then the OKRs are like, right, this one KPI has gone off the rails, or it's actually we could do way better in this KPI. So let's use the OKRs to steer that a little bit. Yeah, and that's the theory. So I wish that it worked that beautifully at Mews, but when we look back at last year, when we made some OKR decisions, actually it really drove the whole team in a direction that it wouldn't have gone into if we would just looked at KPIs. Yeah. So the OKR angle is an important one.
I fully agree. This is like the maybe second year that we're doing it, and I can see how we're making incremental improvements. Yeah. And I'm just so convinced. So for any entrepreneur or wantrepreneur that is listening, it is definitely worthwhile like going through. And the first couple of quarters you're doing it's going to be a mess.
You're supposed to fail, apparently. Yeah. That's what I've heard, and we failed for 3 years so far, so we're doing well.
Yeah. Hey Matt, what is the one thing that has been most instrumental in the success of your company, I think?
I think having a founder, Richard, that you just get on with like a house on fire, because you share the challenging times and the success, and you can call someone about the challenges and you don't feel like you're all alone. And honestly, without Richard, I would not have built the business to what it is today. And it's the same for him. Yeah. So like, I think that has been really, really pivotal. And he is out there reading the world and the internet, and he challenges me to keep up with him, which is really incredible, because I don't naturally gravitate to read huge amounts. Or read beyond SaaS, software as a service, or hotels, because those are my passions. And he'll read about the most bizarre topics, and then he'll pull me into that conversation, and it pushes me to just get out of my comfort zones. Yeah,
but I think Richard is really good at making people enthusiastic. Yeah, and I think that
he's like a Labrador puppy. That's what I think of him.
It's really enjoyable to listen to him. Yeah, and when I think about Oaky, like, starting any company, you have to have the ability to make people enthusiastic about what you do, to get investors, to get a team around, to get customers, partners. And a learning that I thought about as I was walking with my baby and kind of thinking about this podcast is you should always just be yourself. And I remember, especially in the early days, feeling so insecure. I was always trying to please everyone and be someone for everyone. But at some point, I met this wise person who told me, Erik, there are always going to be 3 types of people. Those that love you, those that don't like you, and those that don't understand you. And if you try to be someone else, you have those three camps there too.
Yeah.
That for me was such an aha moment of just feeling really confident in, oh, well, screw that, and I'm just going to be myself.
Nice.
And let those that love you.
I love that.
Yeah, right.
I love that. Yeah.
And I think that's really critical when for anyone, a huge learning for me, that if you want to drive people to be enthusiastic, it has to be genuine.
But like, and I think I look at a culture at Mews, and me and Richard, we deeply live it. Like we love the business we're building, but we also love the people that are in the business, and we want to protect them, but we also want them to grow. We want their mindset to open up. So we really embrace conversations around diversity and inclusion. And whilst not everyone loves those conversations, I think it's so critical that we have a very, very diverse workforce that represents the customers that we're targeting.
Yeah.
So we really embrace the culture, and it's not like building a business based on metrics. You have to have a human angle to it. And we have really strong emotional intelligence. Like we can sense when something's off, and then we lean into that. And we don't just push like the people leader to deal with these things. Yes, they're an important player, but it's us. Like we set the culture the top down.
And I mean, a reason why you have transparency as a value is probably because you and Richard are transparent people, I would imagine.
I think so. Like I have no filter whatsoever. I'm like, ask me any question, I'll answer it, because I think if I give you all the context, that kind of alleviates me from having to make the decision. So I genuinely want everyone to read the P&L and question, like ask smart questions about it, because it means you've actually looked at the numbers and see if they made sense to you. So we put everything on a shared drive. Everything is shared. We have an all hands every week. You ask me anything, and I'll probably answer
you share
it.
your roadmap.
Everything, yeah. We
long before I think many companies were even thinking about sharing the roadmap.
Like we stuck our API on our website, right? Very early on when our industry was completely closed off, and we had written the API, the way that the developers could integrate with our system. And we're like, well, why wouldn't we put it on the website? Like we can only get people to integrate, which means we don't have to integrate, but they can integrate to us. It's great. We save time.
Yeah.
So it was such a no-brainer. But most companies in our industry still, if you were to take a company name and you search for API with that company name, you just won't find it.
Yeah.
And I just think like stick it on the website. If I'm not comfortable put it on the website, then let's talk about that. Like why not? Like how can we change it so that we can put it on the website? Like we have pricing wide open on our website, which no one else does. And I just think it's a good thing to spark it.
Hey Matt, what's the one product or feature that you believe the most in that was a huge failure? That is never used.
Ooh. So very early on, we everyone said, "Oh, ditch the PMS thing. Just do the online check-in.
Okay.
And just keep the old infrastructure." And so we basically we stopped developing the PMS for 6 months, and we just said, "Let's just build that feature, and then we can just have hotels import guest profiles and email addresses, and we invite them." And it just never works if you don't natively solve the problem. So we spent 6 months building that, and it just. People were not buying just that because they're like, so now I have to manually take an Excel sheet out of my old legacy system, import that, then guests go and check in online, and then I have to go back and then export that and import that. And it was just such a convoluted solution because we listened to investors. And in hindsight, I'm like, we really shouldn't have listened. We knew what was right. But sometimes, money does push you in the wrong direction.
But so other than listening to not listening to investors who maybe doesn't know about hospitality, what did you learn from that, and how are you now so amazing at building the right things?
So I don't deeply get involved in product decisions. I deeply care about the problem we're solving, and I think the biggest shift we've made is asking about the problem you're trying to solve. So ask why 5 times instead of just once, and then they'll brush over and like just build us this feature, and we're like, but what are you trying to do? And often someone will ask us could you build this report? And generally the reason why you have reports is because the system doesn't do it automatically and you need to check something. So why are you checking something? Like, could we automate that? Maybe that's the problem. So asking why 5 times has been a real game changer for us. And some customers will be like, just build us this list of features. And some of them will engage with us on why. So one of my favorite customers, Strawberry, they have really engaged with us. And they're like, can we stand at the reception desk and just see what they're doing and why this is an issue? And then we'll fix it. And they've really embraced our product team. So we're flying in and out of Oslo nonstop with our product teams just to experience what happens in a hotel. Yeah. And then we build a real solution for it rather than just building a feature that we're asked to build.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I also think it's not the fault of the customers when they say, "Can you build X?" But if you really understand what they want to achieve, we think about this all day long. So we can just think of, here's another solution. It has the same output, and they are going to be super happy with that. But if I talk to old Erik, or young Erik, then I would have just taken it at face value. No, they're asking for that feature, and we're going to build it. You're not questioning it in the beginning.
And I've been taught that not by Richard or other hoteliers. I've been taught that by the developers who are questioning whether they're wasting their time building something that they know they're going to have to rebuild because they're building the wrong thing. And actually, the developers are sometimes the smartest person in the room who are like, well, I don't want to do this twice. So let me just ask a few questions about why you're asking me to build this.
Yeah.
And they really sparked that culture.
Yeah. We started giving out that everyone in the team can stay. They have to stay in Oaky hotels. They have to book direct,
Nice.
and then they have to report back on the experience. But it's also very important, I think. We started. We built this product that we launched with you guys with amazing integration for front desk upselling. But we learned very quickly you cannot sell at the front desk if you have never seen the rooms. And that just made me think, well, so many people in Oaky are selling or working at Oaky, but have never stayed in a hotel that is using Oaky,
Yeah.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So then immediately try to put that in place.
Like we try and make sure that all of our employees, we travel a lot because we've got offices all over the place. So we do a lot of offsites, and we try and always do that at Mews Hotel or even at a non-Mews hotel, but then actually get the feedback out of people. Like, how was that experience for you? And but it's hard, like getting a developer behind a reception desk. It's a scary exercise, but when you get them there, I remember when I took our new CTO Peppa to Germany, where we had a big hotel, and I was just like, just listen to the stories of the challenges, and at some point he said like, wow, that's awful that's the experience they have, and I was like, yes, it is. But actually, the system is great. But actually, if we can fix these few small things, we'd make their life so much easier. And for him to have seen that in real life, it just, it was so valuable because he now can fight for that customer in front of his teams.
Yeah. Hey, Matt, we talked about a bunch of the different things. What about, what have you learned about learning? So how do you look at failures and successes? And do you like look at them similarly or differently? How do you learn at Mews, and how have you made learning a real cultural thing?
So we're avid readers at Mews, even though I said I don't read that much proactively, but there's a real culture that we stimulate about reading and sharing articles, and we have reading channels and reading clubs. So we really have a culture where we're like, everyone should continuously learn, and we push people to read and to debate what they've read. We believe in conflict. I think conflict is generally a good thing as long as you have it in a positive way. It reaches a better conclusion, and don't just accept what someone says, just question it. And because me and Richard, we do that, like we disagree in front of everyone else, but in a respectful way. It builds a culture of disagree. And sometimes we were in a leadership meeting, and I just disagreed with what was being decided, but everyone else said, no, this is the right thing to do. And I said, fine, I disagree, but I will commit to follow through on this with you. And I think that's the important thing. Debate, and then make a decision and then move forward.
What exactly what you're saying there, we have to reference this in the podcast, is exactly that triangle. That's why you need the conflict. Because even if you disagree, you agree to disagree.
Exactly.
And then you feel heard, right?
Yeah.
There we go.
It's a real bell.
So that was the first part. Thank you so much, Matt. This was really amazing. We could talk for hours, and let's make sure we get to sit together again. As the last piece of the LowKey by Oaky podcast, we have an amazing little part which is about the shameless plug. So the floor is yours. Plug anything that you would like to talk about.
Oh, there's so much. So I will not plug directly our product. I think 10 years into this business, I'm still shocked that we're talking about cloud native versus cloud hosted. And it is genuinely the reason why some hotels do so much better than others. And don't accept cloud hosted. It's basically you've lifted something from an on-prem solution into the cloud to say, yes, we're cloud. But actually, it doesn't change the way that you engage with the system, the way that the APIs work, the way that you can have native solutions for other stakeholders in the system. And it is genuinely the conversation that we still have with hoteliers. So I think if you are looking to move your platforms, make sure that the core piece is cloud native.
How does a hotelier know that?
By asking, you'd have to know, you do have to know. that it's cloud native. You can look at the API and you can determine whether it's a legacy. Like if it feels really old, it's probably lifted into the cloud from something on-prem. Whereas the more modern APIs, I can read them and I'm not technical. I just open up the API and I start reading what data I can pull or push into the system. But that's the really critical piece, because yes, you can integrate with a cloud system that's not native. It's just going to be really, really painful and you're going to constantly be blocked somewhere. So I think in order to change this industry at the core, everyone should be on a cloud native solution. So I think that's probably my biggest pitch, because I just wish that hoteliers would ask that question and care deeply about what the answer is.
Nice. From my side, also in the same realm of how we can change our industry, you need to have partners that are willing to take time out of their agendas to work together on new projects that have never seen the day of light and really truly innovate. And for us, Mews has always been such a partner. Nice. So when we 9 months ago started doing all these interviews with 50, 60 hotel chains about how can we make front desk upselling better, we knew that we needed a partner where the solution was somewhat integrated into the check-in flow. And we immediately contacted you guys, and without any hesitation, we built it. And there were a lot of struggles and bumps on that road, but we got it ready for the amazing Mews Unfold that happened here in Amsterdam. And I'm just really proud of being your friend and partner, because thanks to you, I think you have created a company that is open to such partnerships, and we are now seeing that we are driving enormous value. And I mean, our customers love that combined solution. So thanks so much.
And the thing is, I didn't know you guys were building that, but you had gotten so close to our product team that naturally our teams
even better
work together.
Yeah.
So when you presented this to me at Unfold, I was like, this is incredible. So it's inside our product. You built the solution. Yeah. How did you get through that? Because I've never been able to do anything inside our product like with an external partner. And it's because our teams love you and your teams love us. And I think that's the power of it.
Yeah. Hey, Matt, that's it. I mean, as a conclusion, I'm normally very good at concluding and summarizing, but I think we talked about everything from A to Z here. But got a very, very good understanding into kind of the life of an entrepreneur and from two founders who love hospitality as many as the people that love it the most. Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we are so happy to have you in Amsterdam also.
I know. I get to bike home now, like for lunch, and then have bread. Like it's such a Dutch thing. I love it.
Don't forget the cheese.
Of course.
All right. See you, Matt.
Bye.
Bye.